I was putting my son to sleep. We were reading a book, fell asleep, and then I woke up to gunshots.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infinite Cash Flow Podcast. Today we have a spectacular guest. I'm super excited. Jay Maranan. He's a student in my Infinite Cash Flow Academy. He's a real estate investor. I believe he's still working his 9-to-5 job, and he's going to share with us his journey and his outlook for the future. So I'm super excited about today. If you are someone that is aspiring to escape the 9-to-5, this is the podcast for you. Share with someone you care, and let's take a listen. Welcome to the Infinite Cash Flow Podcast, Jay. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Carlos. Thank you for having me, man. Really appreciate this opportunity to kind of share my journey. Yeah, but I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
You're most welcome, man. You have been a student in my academy for a few months now, and you've been one of the most active ones, which I appreciate, by the way, because I love when people learn, but don't keep the learning to themselves. They start taking action, doing deals, being active participants of the game of investing in real estate. So share with us in a couple minutes your journey, your story.
Yeah, so I think offline we had this quick conversation about the mindset component, right? So for me, my journey was I was living in a C-class area, very hostile environment. Then kind of fast forward, I had kids, and it was an environment I didn't want to raise my children in.
Where was that?
San Francisco, Visitation
San
Valley.
Francisco. Okay.
hmm
Were you born?
And
Were you born in San Francisco?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So my parents are immigrants, so I'm the first generation here.
Mm.
We didn't really have the financial stability. We didn't have the financial literacy, education. We didn't know much about,
Yeah.
well, my parents didn't know much about, this new society. Um, so we didn't really talk about that stuff. We weren't prepared for, the longevity, financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We never had those conversations. It was more very reactive in our environment. So fast forward, I had kids. Prior to my kids, I always thought like, okay, cool, we're here, we have a place to live, we're set. And then my wife, I was like, okay, they're going to take the same route that I took, public schools. My wife was like, absolutely not. And that's where my mindset started to shift. And I think there's a few things that happened, but it boiled down to one incident that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So there's one night where I was putting my son to sleep. We were reading a book, fell asleep, and then I woke up to gunshots. Right.
Wow.
And that was I got up, it was like 11 o'clock, checked the house, we're all good. Soon after, the police came, started knocking on my door because the shooting was right in front of my house. Shell casings were underneath our cars. And that was the moment where I decided and committed to, I have to get out of here. We can't do this anymore. So that
Wow.
was the start.
How long ago was that?
2019.
2019. Yeah. So not that long ago. We're
Not that long
talking,
ago.
4 years, right about.
Yep. And so that was it right there. The mindset, that was the shift, right? Prior to that, my mom passed away from cancer. That was the other big shift for me.
Wow.
Because
Sorry
I
to hear
saw,
that.
thank you. And that was the strongest woman that I had in my life was my mom and my grandma too, but my grandma passed by that time. So it was my mom. And to see her health deteriorate right before my eyes and me being helpless, when that time finally came, I was the last one in the room with her when she took her last breath. That was very traumatic for me.
Wow.
But I couldn't help at that point. I could not help but think about my own life, my own mortality, and how everything's going to come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
And how I want to live until my point, until it's time for me to leave. And I started thinking about like my life, where I want to be, how I don't want to be struggling. I don't want to be paycheck to paycheck. I don't want to live a life that doesn't fulfill or, fulfill my potential or purpose. And that's when I started to think bigger, like, okay, my mom told me she wanted to go to Australia. Now she can't go. My mom wanted to write a book, and now she can't do that. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do in life for myself, and to do my very best to not end up getting to this point of regret. Like when I'm in my deathbed, saying to myself, I should have tried this. I should have bought a property. I should have at least tried. And I say to myself, and my friends that I talk to often, is I don't try something or give it my best. It's a disservice to myself.
Yes.
So that was kind of those two moments in particular
Yeah.
were the biggest pivotal moments of my mindset shift.
Wow. You know what, Jay? One of the things that I always see is when people start changing their circumstances, and it's through their actions and trying to look to change their mind, which is, I think, the highest capacity of the human beings, is like being able to change your mind, right? Being able to live a life a certain way because our parents educated us a certain way, or we saw them living a certain way, making certain decisions, taking certain actions that didn't serve them. I think very few people actually realize and say, you know what they didn't work out very well, but it becomes more like a subconscious habit that they do. So there's this thing that, prosperity breeds prosperity, and so does not success, right? So success is a habit, but failing is also a habit. And many times it's just because where we grew up, or our group of friends, or our family, that's what they were doing. So we don't know any better. And I think what I see is people either are running towards something, meaning, hey, I want to go make the $1 million, and they're running towards that, or they're running away from something. And I think in your case, you're running away from some things, right? You're running away from that neighborhood where you had to wake up to shots fired and check on your family and be scared and fearful. And of course, the regret of not being able to spend more time with your mom and doing things that she wanted to do. So
100%.
I'm glad you came to that point to say, hey, I want to change. So tell me a little bit more on, where you're at right now. What kind of job do you work on, and what were your, before you change your mind, where were you at, and what would have been your prospects in the next 5 years or so?
So the next prospects, what do you mean by prospects?
Yeah. So for example, where do you work? What do you do right now for work?
Okay. So right now I'm in the tech space, biotech space, in Silicon Valley, Bay Area. I manage a team. We handle equipment. So our company does early stage cancer detection. So I'm in that space, tech space.
You're in that space. Yeah. So how long you been at that job?
5 years.
Okay. And prior to that, were you also in a 9-to-5?
Prior to that, I was in a 9-to-5, and then before that, I was in the military.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for your service. So you went to the military. Sure. Were you able to go to school through the military?
Transparently, right? I went to the military because I wanted to escape the environment.
Wow.
That I was in, right? So
okay.
I did
Which happens a lot too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. We actually went to war. So the school thing and the type of work that I was doing, it was very difficult and challenging to get that approval to do that. So while I was serving, I didn't do that, what I had wanted to do. Got out, went to junior college, and that's kind of where that ended. I made a decision to go a different direction, and then just started going for the experience.
That's good. Oh, so you never got a degree?
I got an associate's.
Okay, cool. Yep. And then you started working, basically, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. when I got out of the military, I didn't have the tools, the
Mm.
guidance, or support to know what to do. I remember when I got discharged, I walked out on the street and I had no clue of what to
Wow.
do. I didn't even know where to look for a job. I had no tools.
Wow.
So I just started getting odd jobs and worked up from there. And I'll tell you, so I had this one paper that I had to write for my English professor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an analysis paper on, is a degree more valuable or work experience more valuable?
Hmm.
So I wrote that paper, and I came to my conclusions why one would be more valuable versus the other.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me guess. Let me guess which one was the one that you chose.
Take a guess. Yeah,
Work
exactly,
experience.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, and to be honest, right? Like my thought process and data, I showed that you can get your degree.
Yep.
Most people get the degree and they spend a lot of money for that degree to get out and get an entry level position just to pay that loan back, which is unforgivable,
Yeah.
right? So then you work your way up, and that's kind of the path for that. Whereas if you're going to a position where you have experience, they'll pay you for your experience.
Yeah.
So you can start off a little bit higher. I mean, there's pros and cons both ways.
For sure.
My analysis was more so like, if you go to college, it's a great way to network and build, that type of peer group, right? You learn how to finish jobs, you complete tasks. There's a lot of upside to that.
Yeah.
The camaraderie, teamwork, doing projects. So if you go into college and you kind of have that in mind and build out your network, that could be a
Mm-hmm.
huge upside to that, right? The point is that, is a degree more valuable? It just depends, and it's very subjective,
Yeah.
right?
So true.
So when he handed me back my paper, he said that, hey, he gave me an A, and I tried to pull my paper back and he held on to it, and he said, this is my professor. He was like, I'm in my 60s and I'm still paying back my student loans.
Oh wow.
And when he said that, I was like, I don't want that to be me. And
Wow.
that was my decision to finish out my associates and then move on
Yeah.
to other things. And
Well,
there's because no disrespect or anything towards anybody that's pursuing that. I'm just saying, for me, my position, the things that
yes.
unfolded in my life, that was what I decided.
Yeah, look, I can tell you, I have 2 degrees, Jay. I have a business degree and a master's in engineering. And first of all, the networking thing didn't work for me. I don't know anybody that was in my school of business or in my school of engineering today. Like as crazy as that sounds, maybe I was a bad networker when I was in my 20s because I don't hang out with any of them and I don't do business with any of them. So that's out the window. Paid a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money for it. Thankfully, I think one of the things that happened to me is like, because my dad was so against debt and I didn't qualify for a loan because I was not a US resident or citizen when I was going to college,
Mm-hmm.
it forced me to pay my schooling cash, like without debt, without loans. And I had to hustle and then have to get a 48-hour plus a week job over my full-time coursework. So I think in a way that helped me, because I can just imagine the testimony that you heard from your 60 plus year old professor telling you that sealed the deal for you.
Yep.
You kind of
100%.
saw into the future, right? It's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So that's how that happened. And that was,
Wow.
yeah.
No, I'm glad you told me the story, because that's powerful for folks out there that, just like me. Look, I thought a college degree was equal to success. Like, I thought that I would graduate as an engineer with a master's degree and all these companies will want me right away. I was very wrong. I started knocking doors in the Silicon Valley like you are in, trying to work for Intel, Motorola, Microsoft, Hewlett Packard. All of them wanted engineers with experience. And I was fresh out of college. I'm like, I don't have
No
the
experience.
experience. Where do I get the
Right.
experience? If you don't give me a chance, where do I get the experience? Well, they don't have an answer. That's the thing. They don't have an answer. They want somebody else to give you the experience so that they can take you in
Hmm.
and say, just check. Sometimes it's just checking off that box,
Right.
right? It's just, oh, 2 years experience, 3 years experience working for so and so. When that can mean very little at the end of the day, if your
Hmm.
attitude's right to be the hardest worker in the room, right? So that's a great story for folks out there that are either in the same boat or they're still in 9 to 5. So now you're working for a tech company. Sounds like you're doing well for yourself, right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah. So that's awesome, which is a great testimony that for you experience was very powerful. Sounds like you don't have any school loans,
None.
right? and very proud and excited about that too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what was the next step in the journey? I mean, when you were in a good paying 9 to 5, were you like, okay, I've made it. I'm out of the neighborhood. I'm in a different place, or were you still a little anxious to, hey, is there more to this? Can I do more? Can I learn more? Is there another way to make money on top of this?
Yeah, exactly that, right? From that moment at that moment, remember I told you about the shooting that happened?
Yeah.
That's where my mind started shifting, and I started to think like, how can I improve my situation? How can I get out of here? And that's when I thought of my biggest expense is my mortgage. How can I, you know, reduce that? And that's when house hacking, before I knew it was house hacking, that was the goal, right? I have a 2-story
Mm.
house. I'm gonna turn the whole bottom into another unit where I made 2 studio units. Then I got my first tenant in, second tenant in, and then I was mortgage free.
Nice.
And then COVID happened, and I was like, okay, all I could think about was Warren Buffett. When everybody's afraid, be greedy. When everybody's greedy,
Yeah.
be afraid.
Uh-huh.
Market shifted, people start backing out, and I was like, this is the perfect time to strike when the iron is hot. And then, so that's kind of, I started focusing on that. Anything that had to do with getting out of that neighborhood, that's where my mind was at.
Yeah.
That was step one. So, and then I kind of worked my way into getting to that position.
That's awesome. So you started learning real estate.
I started learning real estate. I started to just immerse myself and be obsessed with learning real estate, like Bigger Pockets. Just every day, 1 to 2 episodes for a year, looking at the market, setting up my filters, getting these drip campaigns going so I can look at what the prices are, going to free webinars, going to meetups, just networking and just trying to figure out and get inspired and see how other people are doing it, probably with less than what I have, right? How do they do it? And then figuring out, I think for me, seeing that spark of possibility meant that I can do it. That's all I needed, was just like, if I can see a path, I'm just going to go that path, right?
That's awesome. And it sounds like you were hungry. Like you're like dedicated to, let's go listen to a couple podcasts, listen to a couple books, let's go to meetups, let's find out what things are selling for. So, that information is available to everybody. Why do you think, Jay, not everybody takes advantage of it? Because I hear very few people say what you just said right now for a year, right? It's like some people listen to it for 2 weeks and they're like, okay, I didn't get what I needed. Next. Like you were at it for a year before you probably made your first move.
100%. I think there's layers to this, right? One is that the mindset of that scarcity, like, I can't do that. I can't afford a house. I can't buy that. I don't have a down payment. And you're just thinking of all these negative thoughts. So, well, if you don't have it, how can you get it?
Yeah.
That shift right there, just how you talk to yourself, right? That's one. That's the mindset thing. And then two is like taking the action, right? Everybody's afraid, but how do you work through that fear, right? Because everything you haven't done before, it's always going to be scary.
Yes.
But how do you work through that fear, right? You got to educate yourself, and people don't want to do the work. They'll always put it off. And if you're committed to doing something, you want a different result, you have to give it everything. And if you don't, then don't cry about it.
That's right.
Don't sit there and talk about how your life isn't how you want it to be, but you're not doing anything about it, right? If you want it bad enough, all the obstacles don't matter. You're going to figure
That's
out
right.
a way. So I think the mindset, and then figuring out a way to work through that fear, right? That, and then lastly, taking that action. You know, the work is not good.
I like what you mentioned about the fear, right? Because the fear never goes away, by the way. Like people think that, oh, I did it once, I'm not gonna be afraid the second time. I talked to someone today that is also an investor, and he said, Carlos, you know, for me, the fear is always there. I've just learned to manage it.
100%.
I've just learned to push it to the corner and keep it there. Like it tries to go back, right? There's days when it tries to come back at me, but I just have to manage it because the fear is still a fact. And as you grow in the business, different levels bring different challenges. So the fear continues. It's just how do you manage that and how do you overcome that? So having that mindset to, hey, you know what? I need to equip myself with the knowledge, with the tools, so that I can go take the actions.
100%. Yeah, and then, like you just said, then comes the action.
Mm-hmm.
Work is not going to do it. You're just not going to learn by not doing anything. You got to pick up a book or audio book or podcast or go somewhere, meet with somebody, educate yourself, however that is for you. YouTube, whatever it is, you have to educate yourself. And those are the steps to learn the process so that you are, you know, equipped with enough information to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hit a fork in the road, right? And you're either going to have to make a decision and then you'll have different results and a different outcome, or you don't, and nothing will change.
Yes. So you started learning, you started acquiring the knowledge, you started taking action, you got a couple tenants. How have these, because it sounds like you've been at it for like 4 years so far.
Yeah.
You know, which is, you know, not a whole long time, especially thinking that you still have a full-time job. You know, where does that journey has taken you so far? Where are you at right now?
So currently I own property in the Bay Area, San Francisco, South San Francisco. I have, which I'm doing a mixture of long-term and short-term, San Antonio, Oklahoma, Decatur, Alabama, and then most recently Garland, Texas. So portfolio is 193 units. And continuing to build those relationships, sharpen my own skill set, and continue to grow from there.
I love it. And you know, you started going bigger, right? You're going for bigger properties now.
Yes.
Why the bigger properties and not just do more single family homes?
A couple reasons. One, I'll give you a simple example, right? You have a single family home, it goes vacant. You're 100% on the hook for the mortgage. Whereas you have, let's say you have a duplex, it's unlikely that both units go vacant at the same time.
Yeah.
One goes vacant, you're only 50% on the hook, and you just kind of multiply that, right? 10 unit, if you have a 10 unit, you would have to go 5 tenants go vacant at the same time to be at 50%. So you just scale that up, right? The bigger, you know, how many you would have to have, if you have a 100 unit, you would have to have 50 tenants leave at the same time to be at 50% occupancy. It's unlikely. So the point is that if you're at like 90% occupancy, you're pretty much covered. You don't really have to, you know, generally speaking, you don't have to worry and you can cover. Economies of scale. You spend all that time, energy, and efforts into a single door when you can spend that same time, energy, and efforts into multiple doors. It's bigger numbers, right? It's just numbers. You just add a zero onto it, but bigger returns, right? And then you can make a bigger impact because you're providing housing, you're stimulating the economy because
Yeah.
you're providing jobs for property managers, maintenance men, providing housing, leasing agents, all of that. So you're making an impact there. So I do like that. And then also as a syndicator, helping people that want to invest in real estate earn some equity, earn some returns, right? So there's like so many layers to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which yeah, I like playing in that space more so than doing that for one house.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the syndication. So for those of you that are listening that maybe don't know what a syndication is it's an opportunity where, let's say, Jay or I find a deal, find a property that we like, maybe a 100-unit property, and we do all the analysis, all the work to acquire it, and put our money at risk to acquire it, and then we offer the opportunity to other investors who come with their money passively so that we can go own the property together. We're the active investors, they are the passive investors. So you've now started in that camp, and you have raised capital for one of these deals. Was this the first time you raised capital, or have you been raising capital all along?
This was my first time raising capital for syndication like this. I've raised capital for smaller deals, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I would say this is my first time for the
How much
bigger
capital
deals.
did you raise?
700 grand.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So was that a lot from before, like compared to before?
Yeah, for sure.
What kind of multiple? Like, did you raise 100 grand before? 7 times. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So 7 times more. So see, this is exactly what Jay was saying before. The scale of business and deals that you can do in one shot, in one deal, in one property, in one contract, just multiplies by 5, by 7, by 10, by 20, depending on how many units and how big the deal is. And that provides you better returns long term, better risk protection, and some crazy tax advantages as well, right?
100%.
So that's exciting. Cool, man. I'm excited. So
yeah.
you've been a student in my academy for a few months, and I hear you, man, and you're very confident about what you're doing, and I'm excited about that because you're now kind of hitting your stride, right? Of you probably have goals. What are some of the goals you have?
Some of my goals in the real estate space is to become a more efficient capital raiser, right? Get some systems in place and to double what I did last year. So get another 100, 150 plus unit, looking towards the end of the year for obvious reasons. There's going to be a lot of bridge debt coming due. So looking for that opportunity to continue on with that, right? Scaling my portfolio, providing value to whoever I partner with, building those key relationships, continuing on networking. So when those opportunities do come up, I'm in a great position. So
how much money you want to raise this year?
Try to go for $1 million.
You're going to go for $1 million. I think you're going to do at least 1.4 or 1.5.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you'll double it. I think you'll realize that, especially now that you are doing your second, third, fourth deal, you become more discerning. Like you become pickier, I would say, into getting into better deals every time, and that helps you because I still think that people invest in the operator, whoever is running the deal first. But the deal has to also make a lot of sense, right? The deal has to really call people's name and attention to be able to say, hey, Jay, yeah, I'm going to invest in this deal with you. So that's super important. And I think you've learned that. You've been one of the guys that has been very closely connected in our academy to learn the analysis that we do and all the criteria that we use when investing in deals. How has being in the Infinite Cashflow Academy impacted your real estate journey so far?
I think so there's different levels, different coaches. For me in particular, right? I think you're going to gravitate to where the areas where you need that support. And for me, happened to be raising capital, right? So just to have that
Yeah.
that support, the guidance, some tools was helpful in just my day-to-day operation and being
Mm-hmm.
very mindful and attentive to and responsive to dealing with investors. So my investor relations, that was like my focus, and that's where I gained a lot from. And then we touch on marketing, different strategies around marketing, operations, and of course
Mm-hmm.
underwriting. Right, all key pillars of investing in real estate, especially as it relates to bigger syndications, bigger apartment buildings. So I think having just that access to the support wherever you need, and then taking that and then applying it is where it's at. Right, you can have anybody go to any program, but you as a person have to figure out what it is that you need most support on,
Mm-hmm.
and then lean on the community for that support.
So true. Double down on your strengths, right? Like if you're strong on something, maybe you're a 7 or an 8. If you double down, you can get to 9 or 10.
For
If
sure.
you are not strong in some areas, like you're a 3 or maybe a 4, like going to a 9 or a 10 requires a lot more work. You might not even get there just because naturally you're not inclined. So what you said is key, is like focus on your strengths. Don't try to be a jack of all trades, right? I think honing in the stuff that you're good, and then finding other partners, other team members that can complement you by you being strong in one thing, it's what really going big in real estate means, because now you have a team that can help you go to the next level.
100%.
Jay, man, it's been an incredible pleasure to have you here in the Infinite Cashflow podcast.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks for having me.
I hope that if you are listening to this, that you can grab some nuggets from the conversation today and use it and apply it and take action for yourself. The goal is really for folks that are listening today to take some of the story that Jay shared with us, his journey, the story about him being in a neighborhood where he feared for his life and the life of his family and running away from that, towards now what a lot of people said, man, success. You already have almost 100 units. That's a successful real estate investor in my book. But in his book is like, I'm not there yet because I have this other big goal that I need to achieve. So Jay, super thankful that you joined us today. Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to continue to work with you. And of course, I know there's a deal for you and I in the future together. So excited for that. Appreciate you, man. Hey guys, if you are listening to this, the only thing I ask is leave a 5-star review for the podcast if you enjoyed the conversation today. And of course, please share with someone else that you know wants to achieve financial freedom and infinite cash flow. Thank you so much for joining us.